Well, for more on women's dress codes at work, let's bring in Stacy Hawkins. She's a professor at Rutgers Law School who specializes in employment law and diversity. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So as we're seeing what's happening there in Japan with this Kutu movement, what are some examples of countries addressing this well and addressing this poorly?
Well, I can't really tell you anyone that's doing it well. I think that there is certainly been a movement since the dot-com boom with tech companies bringing in the casual workplace here in the United States. And we've seen that obviously now for the last probably 25 to 30 years. And there has been a relaxing of the business dress code. Now it's much more business casual in a lot of formerly corporate workplaces where people were expected to wear business suits and women were expected to wear, professional shoes, including often heels. But we often see those standards have been relaxed, although there is still an expectation that people have a fairly business attire even here in the United States.
Now, some analysts equate women wearing high heels to men having to wear ties, these symbols of formality and professionalism. But unlike heels, ties don't hurt if you wear them all day. So why is there still so much pushback in 2019 about really changing the old ways of thinking?
Yeah, so it's interesting because these dress codes and these burdens of appearance that have been placed on women in the workplace have been challenged here in the United States, and unsuccessfully so under our federal anti-discrimination law. And so courts around the country have not found them to constitute gender discrimination. And so that's the reason why there's been a reluctance for businesses to really change these practices, because there's been no legal liability. There have been no findings of gender discrimination on the basis of these codes. And often it's because, as you said in the lead-in, men too have to conform to these dress codes. They often have different, they're not required to wear heels, but they are required to wear business attire appropriate to the male gender. And so I think that particularly now that we're talking about transgender individuals, gender nonconforming individuals in the workplace, these issues may be relitigated and may open up space for these claims to be understood in new and different ways. But generally speaking, because companies have a right to control appearance in their workplace, courts have not found them to be discriminatory. But it will be interesting to see as we move forward with, again, millennials in the workplace and people really wanting to be express their individuality, and gender non-conforming individuals. These legal issues may need to be revisited.
And Stacey, speaking of millennials, we know a lot of them grew up watching Mark Zuckerberg come up, and he's famous for making his daily wear, his gray t-shirt and jeans, essentially a uniform. He says that by automating that decision, it frees him up to make more important decisions. But if the rest of us wore the same clothes every day, we'd be judged differently. So how does workplace culture differ across industries?
So, like I said, tech companies absolutely ushered in the casual workplace. I remember being in corporate law firms in the 90s when the dot-com boom hit. And we did go from being a business workplace where we were expected to wear business attire and in particular suits every day, to dealing with tech clients who were very business casual. And so we followed the lead of our clients, and that shifted corporate culture. I think banking and Wall Street was probably the last bastion of corporate business attire, but even there, you see casual Fridays. And so I do think that it started with the dot-com boom. It started with tech companies,
right.
People on the kind of vanguard of the new, digital age and setting new expectations for the workplace and for work life.
So Stacey, is there at all any correlation between having a more relaxed dress code and changes in productivity in the workplace?
So there has been some study of this, and oftentimes that's at least the justification given by businesses, that they feel that they want there to be a professional culture in the workplace, and that people, if they're dressed more professionally, they'll be more productive. But of course, tech companies, they really rely on innovation. They rely on creativity. They want the individuality that people express through their dress and their appearance to really contribute to the ideas that they bring into the workplace. So I do think that if you're in a creative culture, whether it's in tech or whether or not you're in fashion or in the music industry, those tend to be workplaces where we see a lot more individuality, a lot more kind of fashion risk-taking when going to work, versus when you're in much more staid corporate traditional business environments, where you really are trying to represent the face of the company and not your own individual ideas, that you really tend to have much more uniform dress.
Now let's also explore some of these companies who've used this archaic dress code really as an opportunity to disrupt the industry. Who are some of the standout companies that are really tailoring to today's working women?
So again, I think that there are these companies that are trying to disrupt how we think about. There's a lot of gender bending in fashion. There is a lot of so one of the things, ergonomics in terms of fashion, trying to make sure that people who are sitting at desks all day, have the right kind of attire, have the right chairs and all kinds of accoutrements that come in the business environment. But of course, the big thing is that, at least that I've seen, are these, really comfortable. They had on, I believe it was Shark Tank one time, a guy who made a suit that is literally just like pajamas. It's like a onesie. And of course, we know the yoga pants that are made to look like business pants. And so I think that comfortability has found its way into design, right. But rather than, it influencing what business attire looks like, it's really about making business attire more comfortable.
All right, Professor Stacy Hawkins there of Rutgers Law School. Thanks so much.